Hey, hey, hey!
Yo!
Back again for the second time. We need to stop meeting like this, Mark.
I know, well, it's your fault. You scheduled it. You having a bad hair day? Is that why you got a hat on?
Very bad hair day, and
Well,
it's
I
hot
do.
as hell over here. I've been meaning to do this. Just, I can make this revenue stream way better. Hold on. There we go.
Good. Well, that is the sort of visual trickery that anyone that's listening to the audio of this show will definitely
Yes.
not
So you're going to share
understand.
what you're doing with the audio?
Yeah, well, on the revenue search front, we seem to have been warmly received on X, which is absolutely delightful. And we had a few people say, "I'd like to listen to this. I don't want to look at you guys. I just want to listen to this." So yeah, we've built our own technical roadmap, and the technical roadmap includes launching this on all major podcast platforms soon enough. So working on it as we speak. Hopefully, maybe next week, I'll be able to send a link out saying, "Hey, you can listen to us now. You haven't got to look at Siam's hat."
Jose from BT Labs gave this to me. Apparently.
Well, there we go.
And Jose, I'm wearing this almost daily since he gave it to me.
Good. But yeah.
In fact, talking about going on to Spotify, I think, like, if you are an Audible or audio listener only, I do think you're missing out on a fair chunk of the value, because in investing, the thing I found is that looking at the person you're about to send money to is really important. So one of the things I like is seeing the actual people that, really with every revenue search, we're subtly, I guess we're trying to see it for ourselves, whether we want to, throw money at them. And you can't do that by, I guess it's just like your subconscious understanding of the person. You gain a lot more info with visuals as well.
Well, it is what we do all the time now, isn't it? We are when we are not on a revenue search episode, we are very, very often on Zoom with somebody talking about something. Yeah, it's much easier to judge somebody and see whether you think they're telling the truth or trying to wriggle out of that one a little bit if you've got a camera trained on them.
Randomly.
I always like it when someone's got two screens and then all you see is the side of their face because they're talking to you over here and you're just looking at the side of their face. I think that's always good. Yeah. Anyway, what's on our tight agenda for this evening? What have we got? First thing is the halving, because this was in the in all the channels over the last few days. Talk to me about it. What's happened? Why has it happened? Who's done it? What does it mean? Is it good news? Should I be drinking something other than water?
I think it's. I'd say it's a bit of neutral news. Without going too much into the weeds, there was an on-chain accounting sort of bug where there was 400,000 tau, which the chain wasn't really looking at. And therefore, the halving just kept getting pushed back and back to the point it was like sort of end of February at one point. But now they're addressing this bug, and it's I apologize, buddy, I can never say your name correctly, but it's Maciej Kula. I've destroyed that pronunciation, but yeah, big wig, big brain guy. He discovered it, and so yeah, now that has been fixed, the next halving is early December. So currently it's 13th of December, but yeah, either way.
Who's it going to impact? What's going to happen? What's going to happen in the run up to it? What's going to happen after it? Is it going to impact investors?
It's interesting. This is a bit of a. Let's try and share my screen. This could end in absolute pain. Way Inception. If we get a little chart out over here. So there's one way to look at it. And if you look at the Bitcoin fractals, so for example, by the way, just double checking, can you see this chart?
Absolutely.
Lovely. Well, so there is a bit of nuance here because Bittensor is not a proof of work coin; it's a proof of stake. It just so happens that the tokenomics behind Bittensor is identical to Bitcoin, and so the emissions sort of schedule is like Bitcoin's. But if you were to look at Litecoin or Bitcoin or any other sort of typical proof of work, coin, you tend to see a bit of a pattern. Now, whether this pattern continues, who knows? But these big vertical blue lines here are the halvings for Bitcoin. And what we have seen in the past is that price. This is a weekly chart, so every candlestick is a week. We have a run up of price up until the halving, and then the batshit crazy phase. Then you have a run up into the halving, then the batshit crazy phase. Run up into the halving, batshit crazy phase. We've had a run up into the halving, and we're currently entering or mid batshit crazy phase. So, in fact, Bitcoin's at an all-time high as we speak, 117.5K. So, like with anything, 90% of the move happens in the last 10% of the time. More importantly, looking at Bitcoin here, look at the price action. I did this sort of price action over a year ago, and although it hasn't been spot on, the price action has been spot on.
Yeah,
as you can see. I do see about 250k Bitcoin. And so what does this mean for Tau? Well, Tau, if we were to draw a halving, that's going to be roughly early December. So put it about there. Are we going to see, this is the log chart on the weekly. So are we going to see a nice run up into the halving? And then, whoopsie daisy, I'm doing this with the mouse. Run up into the halving and then batshit crazy phase? Only time can tell. But in terms of actual bit tensor relative type stuff, all that will happen in the liquidity pools of all the subnets is that at the moment, every 12 seconds, which is every block, you have one tau going into the pool and up to 2 alpha go into the pool, but a minimum of 1 alpha. So post-halving, you'll have half a tau going into the pool and a minimum of half an alpha going into the pool as well. So it is a price neutral change.
I mean, on the back of all of that, I don't think there's much to worry about. There's nothing really to look forward to. Yeah, you've made that very, very uninteresting. I was hoping for something big that I could pull out of that, but there isn't. There's not really a headline. There's barely a subhead. Something's going to happen. We're not quite sure what, but it's not going to be very big.
Well, it does slightly mute or soften the price of tau if there is a blow off top in December. So put it this way: when the halving was in February time, I calculated that the circulating supply of tau on the 31st of December was about 10.263 million circulating supply. So if, let's say, the crypto market does have its spike high in December time, it meant that tau price would have been, you basically divide whatever the market cap is by circulating supply. But now we know that, let's say it's still, the halving is on the 13th of December, it means that the circulating supply will be 10.5 million. So whatever the market cap is, you divide it by 10.5. And so it just brings down the spike high price a little bit, but not much.
Okay. All right. Well,
you look suitably bored.
Well, I mean, I was hoping for something explosive. It's more of a whimper, isn't it? Really. But listen, I guess that's good news. I mean, yeah, it's volatile enough, isn't it? So you don't really want any explosive moves. But that's good. Good. So halving, nice. Other thing on our list to talk about is subnets. We spend our entire lives talking about subnets, talking to subnets, and I want your thoughts on that, about how you're judging a good subnet versus a bad subnet, what you're looking for. I know you're investing in subnets for DSV fund. What's your rationale for picking some of those to invest in for longer term and short term? And what changes do you think they're going to be to like the top 10 subnets? I know we talked, if anyone was watching revenue search earlier today, we talked about the top 10. How's that going to change over time?
I've got some controversial opinions, which I don't think some people will like.
Finally, we've got something interesting to look forward to. Good.
So for those that disagree with some of the stuff or all of the stuff I'm about to show, please feel free to tippy tap away on my profile, and I'm more than happy to have an open debate. Because at the end of the day, opinions are like assholes. Everyone has one. This is just my arsehole, my opinion.
We're not going to get onto Spotify at this rate.
Right, let's share the screen. Let's try this again. Right, can you see a little PowerPoint?
Yeah, see it.
Okay. Right, so I'll start off. In fact, I've only got 2 slides to show you, this one. And some of the things I may say, I guess, could be strewn as slightly controversial. But I think that there is no binary, good or bad subnet. And the thing is, it depends on what you want for your portfolio. You could fall in love with a subnet and it could be doing something amazingly, but it could actually hurt your portfolio, even though it's a really good subnet. So I think this quadrant is probably an easier way to sort of understand the spectrum of different nuances and caveats with subnets. Now, first of all, on the y-axis, we have positive price performant subnets, as in this scale here. And then obviously poor price performant subnets. And and then I'm really struggling with words here, because I don't think bad and good are good words, but it's just for a lack of, I probably need to read a thesaurus and find better words. But so let's start with a bad one. Now, the thing is, I see us as, the unofficial marketing department of Bittensor. We're trying to do our best to bring positive, happy vibes, make friends with everyone. And so I don't really like talking about bad subnet. So in my opinion, like a bad subnet would typically be an extractive subnet. So a subnet that leeches off of Bittensor, the protocol, the alpha holders, etc., and doesn't really give anything back. And companies may choose to do that. Whether they last, who knows? Mother market will be the ultimate decider there. I guess like a bad subnet, in my opinion, will be something completely useless, like meow and stuff like that. But I don't really want to sort of focus on the bad. Now, here's the thing. Here's controversial point number 1. There are a whole bunch of epic, really, really good subnets. So they'll be way over here on the bleeding edge of this good sort of chug segment over here, which may not be price performant over the next 3 to 12 months or more. And again, I don't really want to like draw or put too many subnets here. But so, for example, let's say subnet. And I've already said to John this before. Okay, so let's just put subnet 64. Okay, and everything I say right now is, I think, it is said with absolute love, because Shoot is one of the subnets that's sort of pulling Bittensor up. Nearly all of DeepSeek tokens go through Shoot. And it's John is amazing, etc. But remember, if you're looking at this purely from an analytical trading perspective, it's obviously way over here on the right in terms of the good scale. But in terms of positive price performance, you then have to understand the dynamics behind subnet. So for example, if you take a typical subnet chart, oh dear Lord, it does this. It then crashes when it starts. It then has some crazy volatility. They tend to bleed out, and then they form a bit of a base. Okay, so I would say 90% of subnets sort of follow this sort of price structure over the first sort of, let's say, 1 to 8 weeks. Okay, and then some may there'll be a whole bunch of different path projections where a subnet may go. Now, the other thing, I guess there's 2 things that we need to sort of remember, is that the alpha price is the amount of tau in the pool divided by the amount of alpha in the pool. And then the other thing is that if the price of alpha goes up, it then affects the EMA curve, the emissions EMA curve, so that goes up over time, which then means that the subnet gets way more emissions, which then leads us to this next equation, which is sum of subnets times emissions. Just checking. Can you still see this, Mark?
Yeah.
Because all I can see. Okay, cool.
I can see it.
I know you're bored, but just hear me
No,
out.
no, I am trying to keep up.
Okay. So what this means, and so for a long, long time, I've said that there is a big glass ceiling and a smaller glass ceiling in price. So if we just put this in the wrong place, I'm just going to delete this for the moment. So what this means, and what I've always said, is that there's going to be sort of like a slightly angled up, sort of big glass ceiling like this, and then let's say a softer glass ceiling like that. So 1 tau in price is my big glass ceiling. And again, I'm effectively, sucking my thumb and put it in the air. But so far, it's been quite accurate. And then half a tau. So a lot of my sort of investing thesis really stems from my glass ceiling analysis, where basically I don't think many subnets will sustain, and that's the key word there, sustain half a tau of price. And pretty much no subnet will sustain 1 tau of price. Remember, the key word there is sustain. And the reason being is because of these equations. And so, for example, if I was to just do that equation here again, just a bit smaller, sum of subnets times emissions. So at the moment, if we were to do this example here and take, I don't know, let's say a price of half a tau. Okay, so a subnet is half a tau. And then, the sum of subnets right now is what, 1.2? And then you're questioning, okay, well, what emissions will it have? Well, you just get the calculator out, wherever it is, and you do 0.5 divided by 1.2. It gives you 41.67. 41.67. So for a subnet right now to have a half a tau price, even when sum of subnets is 1.2, it means that single subnet has to maintain or has to have 41.67% of emissions. So let's look at this. If we just open up tau stats, Shoots right now is doing 11.42%, and it has been a lot higher. But for a single subnet to command an emissions of 40, like almost half of all emissions, it's not going to happen. Now, the key variable there, again, all in my opinion, is the sum of subnets here. So, for example, let's say we have an absolute stampede of external capital, Sturdy and all these extra sort of things that are trying to bridge external capital back into Bittensor. Over time, the sum of subnets will rally. So let's say, in 3 to 6 months, the sum of subnets is, now 3.
You've muted yourself, Siam. I don't know how you've done that.
What did you last hear?
Well, with sum of subnets is going to be 3. And then when it becomes 3, you did your calculation wrong. Then you did your calculation right. But we didn't hear any of the extra bit.
I don't know how I muted myself, but what I basically said that if sum of subnets was 3, a subnet could be easily worth half a tau in price because it would only be 16.67% of emissions.
Which is just a little more than Shoots than they have been.
Yeah, they have been. And Shoots have been, 16% of emissions before. Yeah, so I have to stress that my glass ceiling does angle up, but the key factor there is external capital flowing into Bittensor, which is why we are on a crazy mission to try and funnel in as much TradFi money as possible to help angle this sort of glass ceiling up. Again, if you do the equation, the same equation with one, like it's just ridiculous. And Shoot's got to like 0.44 before halving. Therefore, as a trader, what am I going to do? I'm going to look for the high expectant value bands here. So typically, what I wait until a subnet has bled out, and then what I like to do is wait till it is recovering. It's created a bit of a bottom, and my EV bands are something like this. So I like to get in at a subnet around sort of 0.005 to 0.02 tau, normally a bit lower. And that way, if I get in at, let's say, 0.005 tau, by the time it's got up to 0.025 tau, it's already done a 5x. So I'm obsessed with the R multiple of our subnets. And so the question that is always in my head is, does this, if I'm looking at a brand new subnet, does this subnet have the potential to do a 3, 5, or even a 10x in price? And everyone, I think, gets completely fixated on the wrong things. Because I see all sorts of like Telegram groups and whatnot, and they're obsessed with FDV and market cap, and it's all utter bollocks. Market cap and FDV mean jack shit with detail, at least for the short to medium term, because the dominant like sort of vector in subnet market cap is nothing to do with the subnet. It's all to do with tau. If tomorrow tau went from 392, and it 10x'd, overnight every subnet market cap also 10x's, because again, look at the price. So the other equation for typical crypto stuff, remember it as more patience Kryptonian. So remember that triangle like this. So market cap is price times circulating supply. So if tomorrow the price of tau 10x'd, so too will the subnet market caps, because it will be the price of 0.1 tau, whatever, times the circulating supply of whatever that is. So the price of tau is the thing. So for subnet trading and stuff like that, ignore market cap and FDV. It's useless. So this is why I like operate around these bands, and once a subnet has done let's say a 5x in price, going from even 0.01 tau to 0.05 tau, then we can just take out 75% of our profits, rotate into something else, and then keep 25% to run, because it could go to 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, or even more. So we then have skin in the game for the much longer term. So that is my preamble. Sorry, Mark. That's the preamble. Now we can get back to this, and where I can try and dig myself out of the hole, because with Shoots, Shoots is a much different proposition now. So when Shoots was at like 0.4, for me it was uninteresting, because the question I was asking myself is, can Shoots do a 3x or a 5x? And the answer was no, because at a 5x and 0.4 meant the price of Shoots would have to go to 2 tau. It's never going to happen. Now it's at 0.137. It's much better. And so you can look at 64 and think, but the thing is, it's still, it's the most expensive subnet. So could it 3x? Yeah, it could. So it could either go this way. It could just stay around where it's at the moment, and just be like a stable coin and be 0.1 sort of price forever. And I'm just drawing all sorts of different price paths, which you could do for anything. But the thing I'm trying to say is that, like, there are some really good subnets, like really, really good, that Bittensor was designed to incubate. And again, I say this lovingly, like if we take subnet 3, so Templar. Templar is as good as it gets, in my personal opinion. Like, it's a proper moonshot, and Bittensor was designed for these moonshots. And I guess I'm going all over the place now, but no, okay, this will make sense in a bit. But basically, like one of the in fact, yeah, this is probably worth going to point one here. 90% of the reason Bittensor will become more well known or respected in the real world will be due to 10% of the subnets. Okay, so Templar is taking the fight to centralize AI. When we get to the point where Templar is doing a permissionless distributed training run on a model that is the same parameter size or more than the best OpenAI model, then that is a knockout blow for OpenAI. They won't be able to compete once we get up to that point. But unfortunately, it's going to take, 12, 18 months before Sam can get to that level where he's, basically smashing OpenAI in the face. But until then, a lot of people about, well, where's your revenue? And I know we've sort of created that sort of narrative that, because we're hunting for revenue-making subnets. But unfortunately, Subnet, where is Templar 0.05? Yeah. So again, Subnet 3 will be in one of these positions where it's not making revenue. It won't make revenue for a long time, but it is one of the 10% of the subnets which will deliver 90% of the value. And again, so yeah, I really don't want to draw subnets on here because I love them all. Like I love 64 and I love 3. But just be aware that there will be subnets. You could have really good ones that just go down in price. Yeah.
Well, you've dug yourself.
Sorry, Mark?
Dug yourself a neat hole there. Why am I echoing?
In fact, I'm going to move on swiftly. So as I said, 90% there, and then the next sort of one that we need to look at, 0.2, because I'm going to try and speed this up. These are sort of the same points. Sorry, I think I've done a typo there. Yeah, okay, here we go. So in the short to medium term, 90% of the reason Tau will moon, so the reason why Tau will go to 3K or more, etc., will be due to smart, bigger money flowing into this space, not because of retail or what the subnets are doing. So a lot of the upside in Tau price will because of just bigger inflows coming in. The amount of public entities that are going to adopt a strategic Tau reserve. I mean, you and I, we've had conversations with these which haven't announced yet. So we can see the pipeline coming down. I fear I haven't saved the final edit here because there was a 0.2. And 0.2 was all about revenue. And I see a shift in the guard. So when we're looking at, say, the top 10, top 20 subnets, I think there'll be a short to medium sort of narrative shift where revenue generating subnets that convert that real world revenue into alpha, their own alpha, will ramp up this emissions leaderboard, and they'll sort of steal the show for a while, and then eventually in 12 months plus time, it won't necessarily be revenue focused subnets which actually command the highest emissions, if that makes sense. So that's my little ramble over. Feel free to tear me to shreds, Twitter.
Well, I'm not going to take the shreds. I am going to ask you to sort that.
What, sorry?
I'm echoing, and that's
good. No, it's not me. I've got my Yeti on. Are you sure your mic is...
Yeah, when you muted yourself and unmuted, I've echoed.
Now it's the Yeti.
Now it's the Yeti. Now we can hear you better. I've got no echo. This is absolutely perfect. So the 10% of subnets that being the reason that Bittensor becomes better known. Just pulling back on our conversation with John at Shoots the other day, I don't know if Bittensor is ever going to be known, because it's going to be the subnet that gets known in some cases, like Dippy. Dippy might get known, but subnets like Shoots, I don't even know if Shoots is going to get known, because it's going to be the apps that are built on top of Shoots. Yeah, so the app gets known, not the subnet, not the protocol. So
yeah, I agree.
I don't know if that's going to happen. Like you got those ones with Shoots where it's apps at the top and then Shoots and then Bittensor, and then you got stuff like Dippy where there's a brand that's built directly on top of it. But Bittensor, will it ever be known? I don't know.
Yeah, so those that are slightly more educated, it will be. Like, for example, Linux. Like, if you were to go down the street and ask 100 people what is Linux, I reckon 5% of them could tell you what it is. Yet 100% of people walking down the street interact with Linux on a daily basis, whether they know it or not. You get in your car, there will be something powered by Linux. So I think where Bittensor is most likely heading is it will be the Linux of AI. It'll be that thing that just powers
Yeah,
decentralized AI and everything. Yeah.
you talk about Linux, you talk about TCP/IP, and like people don't know what these things are.
Yeah.
Bittensor's going to be in the same boat, or as you used the other day in one of your malpropisms, the same bandwagon, which I also very much enjoyed. I know you're terrible at it. So back to subnets then. So in the fund, you invest in subnets in two distinct ways. You trade subnets, which I guess is that band of action that you talked about there.
Yeah.
And you choose some that you want to invest in more strategically, like long term. We like the look of these guys, and those are the ones that you do OTC deals with. What's the difference in your head? Like, how do you look at a subnet and go, oh, like I'm going to back you guys for the long term, and look at another subnet and go, oh, I'm going to put some cash in and see what happens over a few weeks or months?
Without turning this into a DSV chat, it's because we are threading the needle and doing that fine balancing act, because the typical VC fund has a 10-year lockup. That is industry standard, 10 years. We're a liquid fund with 1 year lockup, and therefore, by definition, I can't do things with a 5-10 year sort of timeline. So any OTC deal that we do, we can't really go more than 25% of the portfolio in longer term stuff, because any OTC stuff that we do, we buy, hold, park, and forget, and we're not going to be selling anytime soon. So it means that 75% of the pot, I have to make sure I'm doing short term stuff that is getting an uplift on the alpha, and I think for where the newer people entering Bittensor. The real trick I find it sort of in understanding this. In fact, I want a darker screen. I know a lot of people prefer darker screens. So how about we do, God damn it. How about that? There we go. Let's get a white pen out this time. So like let's look at Bittensor in a defensive way. Okay. So let's say you have your $10,000. And you divide it by the price of tau. Let's just call it $400 right now, okay? So I've got my little calculator here. I'm just going to do it to speed up the thing. So you end up with 25 tau, and let's just keep things nice and easy. Let's just say this person just wants to YOLO into Shoots because it's a great subnet. So Shoots is so the price is 0.137. So what you do is 25 tau divided by, what am I doing? Divided by 0.137. So divided by 0.137 is 182. 182.48 alpha. Okay. So let's just say the price is whatever, and you've got in here at 0.137 tau. Now, you can track all of the different sort of APRs. You can use tau stats. You can use, tautrack.com. Everyone has different ways. I look at both. But if you were to just go to tautrack.com and scroll to Subnet 64, let's look at the longest period time frame possible. They're all hovering around sort of 68, 70. Let's just be pessimistic. Let's use 60% over the next year. Okay, so we're using 60%. So over the space of a year, your 182.48 tau times 1.6, your alpha has now grown to 291.968 alpha. Okay, and let's just say worst case scenario for whatever reason, the price doesn't do what you expect it to do. And price actually, let's say price just goes down. Let's say it goes, worst case scenario, let's say it halves. Okay? Worst case. So price drops over the space of a year. I'm not saying it will happen. I'm just trying to paint an ugly picture here. So price is now that. So you then come to sell at the end of the year because, I don't know, let's say the bull market is, already happened and you just want to get out. So now your 291.968, you have to times that by 0.0685, which is 291.9668. You're left with 19.99 tau. Okay, so you've lost tau. So you started with 25 tau, you're now down to 20 tau. You're kicking yourself because you're down in tau. But here's where the tau itself is your sort of wet blanket, your safety net, safety blanket, whatever it's called. And because if tau goes from $400 to let's say $3K, being conservative, well, your 19.99 tau is now worth 59K. So 59,970. So you've gone from $10,000 to $60,000, even though the price has gone down. So the APY is a bit of a sort of, it helps reduce your average entry price, so to speak. And yeah, even if you really screw up your D-Tau sort of investing, the Tau price appreciation will effectively bail you out.
Okay.
However,
go on.
Just one last thing. But here's why you should be in alpha, because what I've just done there is just a really bad example of what could happen with a bad price outcome. But let's just say, Shoots does its thing, and it may not 3x or 5x, but let's say it just goes back to 0.3 tau, and you do the same thing now. So you've gone 291.968 times 0.3. All of a sudden, you've got 87.59 tau. You started with 25 tau, you're now at 87. And then we can do the same math, so times that by 3,000. And this is where shit gets a bit crazy, because you go from $10,000 initial investment to 262,771.2. So, really, it's the risk to reward seesaw that you have to say, is this reward and that R multiple upside big enough to outweigh the risk that you're exposing? In my eyes, 100%.
Right, I get that. But all that does is make the question that I originally asked more prescient, i.e., how do you choose the subnets? Because in that example, if you choose the wrong subnet, then yeah, you're still up, but you've chosen a subnet that would you're doing better off just holding tau. In the second example, you've chosen a better subnet, and you're picking subnets. You're picking subnets for the fund, and you're picking them for two distinct purposes in my eyes. First is those OTC deals, and I'm involved in the OTC deals, so I know what we're looking for. We are looking for a good idea, something that is needed, not just fancy schmancy technical. We can do this, so let's do it. So we're looking for something that's needed. We're looking for something that has got some value, and we're looking for a team that we believe in, that we think can deliver on that plan. So I understand that, and I get that. Yeah, although this is called revenue search, we're not interested in revenue today. We're not even interested in revenue tomorrow. We're interested in, is there going to be some revenue at the end of it? When is the end of it? That's really it. It could be 6 months, could be 12 months, could be 18 months. We're playing that VC role with those deals. But here, where you've drawn your kind of 12-month chart, we're not talking about OTC deals into long-term winners. We are talking about looking at something and picking the subnets that you would buy the alpha of now if you were investing, to make the most of this opportunity. And how do you think about it? Do you care whether it's a good idea? Do you care whether there's a market for it? Do you care whether you believe that the team are going to be able to deliver on the ambition? Or do you just care that they're trading in this range, and being part of the ecosystem is going to mean that they're going to float in the right direction?
So ultimately, it's looking for good or bad subnets which have the highest probability of being a positive price performance subnet. And unfortunately, markets are markets. We could be in the situation where there are a bunch of subnets, even a bad subnet, where because of this price action here, where in fact that price action, you could I jump in this bit here once it's bled out, it's bottomed out, it's starting to make its way up, and for the shorter term plays, I hate to say I don't actually care whether it's going to change the world in 18 months time or 10 years time, because I'm looking at our multiples as in price uplifts on that. So I don't want to shout our own bag, but I'll give you an example of one where we don't have an OTC deal with, and here's a subnet I love. I love Gaia. So like this is a prime example. If we look at, oh dear Lord. So if I just click auto again, auto didn't work. Come on, Talsats. No matter how many times I save my profile, I still can't get it to show what I want. So I like the 4-hour chart. I like to get rid of the rubbish volume because it's irrelevant. And because you should only look at exponential things in the log chart, you must, like for subnets, subnets are not exponential instruments. They're not exponents. So you have to look at them in the linear chart. Now, I know the chart here looks a bit dog shit, but you can see that story which I've mentioned. It's bled out, it's bottomed out, it's now starting to make its way up. It's made a lovely base, and you can see that we started buying Gaia, as part of the short-term pot, at the 0.05 tau level, and it's done very well. Obviously, it's coming back down now at the moment. But also, when you look at the emissions growth, look at this. This is nice, gradual emissions growth. Another one, admittedly, full disclaimer, Autopia, we're in bed with at the moment. In terms of the price action, again, it looks pretty. Look, same thing. It's bled out, it's bottomed out, it's made up, it's popped up. So I was like, hey, we're here. It's making another nice base. We've managed to, or we're still buying it. And I believe it's got further upside. And when we're looking at that emissions curve, look at that nice gradual curve. Whereas if you find something which is dead, I don't know, next place is pretty dead. The emissions are flat line. There's no activity, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's no activity on the GitHub. Yeah, it's basically a dormant, dead thing. I could be wrong, but I haven't looked into this. But but in terms of how I do the selection, like I'm gonna have to make another video on this, because we'll have to show our OTC subnet selection process, which is quite lengthy. Unless you want me to sort of breeze through it now.
Yeah, go on. I'm clear on the OTC stuff. It's the other stuff that because most people that are watching this don't have access to OTC deals.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's less relevant for them. It's interesting for me to understand the distinction between you choosing an OTC team, and I understand the rationale behind those decisions, and you choosing to make an investment, because that graph over 12 months, you would be pleased, with the multiple on the poorly chosen subnet overall, because you're up, because you've been saved by what you called the wet blanket of tau.
Sorry.
But you'd be pretty pissed off if your mate had chosen the other subnet and he's swanning in his yacht.
Yeah. So I'm going to have to breeze through this, because I could literally talk about our subnet selection process for an hour. But it's this. So obviously we're a regulated entity. We have to basically document all our processes and more. But if I zoom in a bit, you can probably see this. So so section 1, I have a whole bunch of different sort of screening. I like to get a few different lists. So one of the things I look at is I identify the subnets with low tau emissions relative to their price per block. So for example, if you go to tau.app and go to the metrics tab, come on internet, and then scroll to the bottom, you get this over here. So you can look at the amount of tau needed to sustain price per tempo. And then basically, long story short, without going into too much of this, I create a nice little list of the small green bars. So that's one list. And then I literally open up the chart for every single subnet, and I'm looking for charts which match that high expected value band, like I've been saying over here, this everything within the rainbow sort of area. So it's not the old ones, it's not the brand new ones, it's the Goldilocks sort of zone. So that's a short list there. Then I make 2 other short lists, which are ones with low Gini coefficient subnets and high HHI. So you find them on tau.app. You go right, well, I've adjusted my columns. So you just click these 2 over here, and these 2 bands over here. So you can put these in ascending order if you want. And then I look for the good ones there. So by the end of this, I got typically about 3 lists.
Sorry, what are those 2 things? What's a Gini coefficient? What's a HHI subnet?
Cool. So luckily, tau.app will, if you hover over any of these things, it'll literally tell you what it is. So Gini coefficient, as it says here, it shows you how evenly the stake is distributed amongst the top 100 holders. So closer to 0 means stake is evenly distributed. So with the Gini, you want a lower number possible.
Yeah.
So if you put it like that, this is good. And look at shoots, it's way up there. Synth is up there, it's great. Dippy, Ridge, lovely ones. And with HHI, it's very similar, but you have to look at it the other way around. So it measures how concentrated the token ownership is across all of the subnet. Okay, so closer to 1 means few wallets dominate most of them. So you need the higher number here, which is that one there. And again, Shoots is leading the pack there.
Yeah.
So in terms of all holders, Shoots is actually the best one in terms of wealth distribution, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So I have a look there. Then I do the DD. So I need to look at the emissions going over time. I like to check the amount of alpha holders. You can see that on Tau Stats. You can just quickly click on any old subnet. Let's click PTN here. Scroll down. You'll see how many holders there are there. And there's a few different things that I glean from that number there. I look at the top holders, and I like to see with those top holders, are they good holders or are they dumpy holders? So this takes hours in itself, because you find a wallet, you then go, it's been funded by this wallet over here, and it goes to this. So you end up clicking through a whole bunch of different wallets to see if they're a dumpy wallet or not. Then I monitor volume for a while. I then check the GitHub, see if it's active, review social media, because it's like I mentioned a few revenue searches ago, if you set up a lemonade stand in the Sahara Desert, no one knows that you exist. So what we are interested, like with Score today, they have a marketing department. I think they're probably the only subnet with a marketing department. Big tick for me.
Yeah,
yeah. Evaluate the founder behavior on X and everywhere else. So one of the things I do is I look for the founders on X, and I go through every post they've ever done on X. I then go to Discord, and then you can do a user search, and then I read every single post they've put on Discord. Like if they're negative or toxic in any way, I'll never put money towards that subnet. I'm going to put that in bold. It's important. And then I do a deep dive into the Discord thread. So again, if you want to look at a new subnet that you like, go to the Discord. So you open up the Discord, you go to the Bittensor one over here, and then deep dive into, I was like, in fact, the other day I was looking into 5. I was like, what the hell's going on with 5? It's like, should be launching in 2 weeks, every 2 weeks. Sorry, JJ. But yeah. Anyway, so strategic readiness, validate, the roadmap, product market fit, internal coherence, all that sort of stuff. And then you can learn a lot about a subnet and the owners by watching maybe 4 hours of interviews. Novelty Search, Guru, Ventura, Hashrate, they're all great. I always watch all of them. So you guys, thanks for doing that. That is like, you can get 90% of your research done just by watching those podcasts. And then, yeah, I don't like doxed owners. Sorry, I don't like anonymous owners. I want a team to be fully doxed, because do they have a reputation to lose? You know, if they have a public profile and a reputation to lose, they're going to be less likely to scam people or do a rug pull. Not that you can rug pull with Bittensor. So we're really eyeing up the owners here. Then we get into the tokenomics and then looking at the incentive mechanisms. In fact, it should be its own thing there. Incentive mechanism. I'm ruining our little document here. I don't know how to space this out. Maybe you can do this one.
Shift return.
Shift return. You learn something every day. Oh, dear God. There we go.
Yeah.
Right. So that's important because it's different for every subnet. Then I look at a whole...
Well, we know that's important because you not only put it in bold, you put it in all caps and there's an exclamation mark. I mean, you might as well have put it in red.
Wait. I'm not done here yet. 1 second. Are you ready for this?
No. Oh God. How to know when something's really important.
Yeah. I'm just doing this to piss you off. There we go. Then obviously you need to look at emissions, etc. And again, I'm wary of time. This 15-minute revenue search.
There's a lot going on in there, isn't there?
We're almost out there. So, but basically, I go through all of this every 2 weeks for every subnet, and then we do all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, but that's worth doing for us. But that's just for the longer term, the stuff that goes into our kind of strategic long play wallet. But the shorter term stuff, you're much less interested in that. Do they need to be doxed for short term?
Like, I hate to say this, but if you're trading for the short term, let's say over the next 6 months, because let's say the bull market's going to be in about 6 months, like 90% of your subnet selection could just be that Goldilocks point of the chart. Like, I've never bought the top 10. Like, and you know that I've always said, buying the top 10, you're guaranteeing yourself to be punched in the face because of the equations. Like, if something's priced at 0.2, 0.1, whatever, the likelihood of them 3xing is very low. Whereas if you pick, dare I say, cheaper ones, like I said, the probability of them doing 3 to 5x is very high, but the downside is somewhat mitigated. And there's a little sort of homework experiment you could do. Look at all of the new subnets from subnet 65 onwards, so as in post-detail subnets, chart the lowest price that they bleed out to, and then how much they 5 or 10x. And you'll find that the lowest... So I would say the lowest price, typically most of them are around 0.003 tau. Very few subnets that get lower than 0.003 tau, as in active subnets. That's another key distinction. And so, dare I say it, if you're in for the short term, find ones with nice gradual growth emissions. It's a good enough subnet, and that you're playing in that Goldilocks zone. And also, remember, this is a market at the end of the day, and you're not trading subnets. You're not trading incentive mechanisms. You're trading human beings. You're trading eyeballs. We are day trading human attention. So if there's a subnet that looks meh, the chart and the emissions look all good, and the root prop is pretty low, and it looks like it's a subnet that's going to get eyeballs, guess what? People, eyeballs flow in, price goes up typically. And this is the shittiness of trading that I hate. Whereas we see some great subnets just going down only in price, but they're doing really good things.
So maybe just the last thing then before we wrap this up, because I'm interested. I saw a post from JJ a few days ago, and he'd put some price predictions on. He said, this is where I think Tau's going to go. This is where I think Bitcoin's going to go. You see that? What do you think?
think price is going up. Don't think Tau is going to be bigger than Bitcoin though. So that's a key thing. Like, you all know I'm a permabull pretty much. That video I put out, that 1 hour video of what is Bittensor, there is a price chart thing there where I think, where I think it's going to go. And I think it's going to go pretty high. Do I think it's going to be more than the price of Bitcoin? No. Because it means that the market cap of decentralized AI will have to be bigger than the market cap of money. And that's where I see Bitcoin. There's a big part of my heart which is Bitcoin maxi. And I think a lot of people in Bittensor are also Bitcoin maxis as well. And like, if you look at every asset class on the planet, whether it's gold, numismatics, the bond market, the currency market, equity market, all of these different markets, Bitcoin is the magic orange Pac-Man that's just going to be gobbling up little chunks of every freaking market. It'll gobble up a lot of the gold market. It'll gobble up the arts and craft, the arts market, etc. And so Bitcoin itself will be a multiple, like $100 trillion market in itself. And it is money. It is the purest form of money. It's the Noah's Ark, the financial Noah's Ark. It's the aperture to escape from a global currency dilution. So I love Bittensor, but I really struggle to see the market cap of Tau being more than Bitcoin. Just my take.
Well, yeah, I mean, if Bitcoin gobbles up the arts and crafts, then we're all in trouble. Gosh. But the interesting comparable between Bitcoin and Bittensor seems to be that Bitcoin did it all first, and that makes it easier for Bittensor to do it. It makes it easier for Tau to do it. The stuff that took years and years and years for Bitcoin, for us to see in Bitcoin, we're seeing a quite adoption faster in Tau. So Treasure is a good example.
The amount of companies doing strategic Tau reserves is nuts, and it's taken 3 years. It took Bitcoin 13 to 15 years to do that.
So there's a lot of money flowing, isn't there, at the minute? And on the sidelines waiting to flow. And I guess that's what JJ knows when he's making his predictions.
Yeah.
Good.
One other point there is that whether you think it's in 2 years' time or 10 years' time, there will be a point in the near future where AGI and ASI is born or escapes onto the internet or is let loose on the internet. And, like Ray Kurzweil has said, and who's normally spot on, that is the singularity. That is the event horizon. And I think it is somewhat futile trying to forecast beyond the event horizon. So I do think, when AGI and ASI is here, no one knows what's going to happen after that. So for me, I'm going to be target fixated over the short term to begin with.
Cool. Listen, I've enjoyed this just for me and you. That's been nice. If you're watching this and there's stuff that you think that we should jump on, if there's stuff that you think I should ask Siam about on one of these live streams, then let us know. And maybe he's going on holiday, but we could still get him on a live stream. I think we'd still tempt him on. So send me some topics and some questions over, and maybe we'll get him on another one of these next week and try and keep it to under an hour. Because we do read all of your messages on Revenue Search. I promise you. That is why I'm going to spend some time working out how we can get this on to Spotify and Apple, so people don't have to look at us; they can just listen along. That's it from me. What do you got?
This episode is going to be shit on Spotify.
Oh, dreadful! Absolutely.
You need the pictures.
Cool. All right. Thanks very much for answering all my questions. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too, and see you soon.
See you then.
Bye.